Peace everyone, Unmask Art here, and welcome to Peaceful Pastels. So glad you're here. I hope you're having a wonderful day. In today's episode, we will be creating a beautiful blue sky with some nice fluffy clouds. The colors we'll be using today are white, cool gray, pure lavender, powder blue, and cyan. These colors were graciously provided by this episode's sponsor, Jackson's Art Supply, and to show their appreciation for all of you wonderful people coming by and watching today's episode, they will be giving away a Season 1 starter pack that includes all 14 colors you'll need throughout Peaceful Pastels Season 1. So make sure you are subscribed and leave a comment below if you'd like a chance to win the starter pack. Alright, so now that we have all of our colors, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first color that we will be starting with is the cyan color. And we're going to fill in half of the page. We're going to fill up the top half of the page. So I'm just going to draw a quick reference line here for you. And we're just going to fill in the top half. Now when you're working with pastels, if you've never worked with them before, you don't have to apply a lot of pressure. You just want to let the paper do all the work for you. And the paper that I'm using today is Clairefontaine Pastel Mat. And this is going to be the paper that I use throughout the series. What you want to do is just get nice coverage on your page here. Now generally when you're working in a sky scene, you always want to work horizontally with your motion. That helps hide any lines that you might create accidentally. But it's a very simple, very relaxing process. Just take your time and fill in the space. Now you don't have to cover the paper completely because when we blend it out using our soft tool, all of that excess pigment will be blendable and it will help cover the paper. Just want to try to get enough pigment on there. And then also I want to mention that for my border, I'm just using regular old masking tape that I get from local hardware store. So there's nothing special about my tape. I simply cover up about 1 centimeter from every side, 1 centimeter to about 1/2 inch, depending on your measurement system you are used to. But you can pretty much make any border size that you'd like. I usually stick around 1 centimeter. That gives me enough room after I'm done with the project to handle it without getting my fingers into the painting itself. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next color. The next color we're using is the powder blue, and we're going to fill in the bottom half of the paper now. So same approach, very soft hand, light touch, let the paper do all the work for you. Try to maintain a horizontal direction to hide any of the lines that you might create. We're going to create kind of a two-tone page here and then kind of work in the middle to blend these two colors together. We're also going to add a little bit of white down at the bottom to fade this powder blue out. Just create a little bit of a sensation of light. You might also notice I took the paper label off of my pastel. I certainly recommend you do the same, but save those paper labels so that you can always remember which color is which. Because as we collect more and more colors over the seasons, you end up with quite the collection of pastels. There we go, just like that. A little bit down here in this corner. And I'm just going to go ahead and grab my white really quick. I'm going to do a quick pass of white down here at the bottom. Just add a little bit of the white. That way when we blend out, it fades into a nice light blue. Don't be afraid to generously apply your pastel here. There we go. Now I'm going to go back to our cyan color and just add it right into the middle there. Just a sweep right across the middle. Just like that. Now we have some of our powder blue underneath and our cyan on top, and now we're going to blend this and get a really nice smooth gradient for the backdrop of our clouds. So now we're going to use our soft tool to blend all of these colors together, and this will be the first time for many of you using a soft tool. You can use your finger also, but I find that the soft tool helps control the amount of dust throughout the painting process. And I'm just going to start at the top and kind of work my way down slowly. Now, one of the things with this tool is that also, just like the pastels, you don't want to press too hard. You just want to let the sponge on the end of the soft tool do the job for you, and just use a really, really light pressure. Soft pastels are very, very delicate medium, and it doesn't take a lot of effort to make changes. So just using a soft touch will preserve your sponge. If at any point you notice that your sponge is kind of crumbling and falling apart, just know that that is a result of pressing too hard, and there's no need for that. You can already start to see how smooth and soft the color is coming out. And just like the application process, we want to keep a nice, smooth, horizontal direction to our blending. This will help create a more realistic sky. Around your edges, if you make a border with tape, be careful not to brush up against it too hard, lifting the tape. That will prevent you from getting those nice clean edges we'll see later on when I untape the border. You don't want to push any of the pastel underneath the tape. So I usually will work away from the edge, bringing the color in. Now we're coming to the intersection of the two colors, so you don't want to go too quickly here. Kind of slow your vertical direction pace a little bit. That way you get a nice smooth transition. And of course we can always add more colors over top of this layer to get the exact transition and exact colors that we want. fact, we'll probably add a little bit of the powder blue over top of the cyan to get a little bit softer transition. So you can see that that transition of colors is just a little bit rougher than what we want. So we're just going to need to add a little bit more pigment onto our paper. And if any part of your project here looks like the paper is still showing through, you'll also want to add a little bit more pigment onto the page. What you don't want to do is try to force the pigment to cover the paper by adding more pressure to your soft tool. Remember, you should always keep a very light pressure with the soft tool. That way you don't wear out your sponge unnecessarily quick. This sponge and the pack of sponges that you get with this soft tool should last you for a very, very long time. Many paintings can be done with a single sponge if you're using the right pressure. Okay, so now that we've blended out for the first layer, it's time to apply a little bit more pastel to get a better coverage and just a smoother gradient in our sky before moving on to the clouds. So I'm going to start with my cyan color and just add a little bit of extra pigment on the top side just to make sure that I have the paper covered completely. So I'm just going to do a couple passes with the cyan, still using a very, very light pressure, just like that. So very simple. And I'm going to switch to the powder blue, and I'm going to apply some of it a little bit up into the cyan here to create a more gradual transition from the cyan to the powder blue. So just like that. And that should help give us a more gradual transition between those two colors. And then once again, I'll grab my white and add just a little bit of white down here at the bottom. Just like that. And then I'll grab my blending tool. And I'm going to start right here at the transition and just start to smooth out those pigments. Try to work that transition so that it's nice and gradual. Nice gradual change from the cyan to the powder blue. It's already starting to look like a sky, isn't it? See those streaks there? Even though it's not a perfect gradient, because those streaks are horizontal, it kind of just resembles clouds. It's almost like putting in clouds without trying to put in clouds. And that's why we always work horizontal in our skies, so that we can hide those streaks, because they're perceptible only as being clouds, really. And come down to the bottom here, smooth out where we applied the white, and we're left with a very, very nice gradient. Just perfect for adding some nice fluffy clouds. Now you can rework and fine-tune your backdrop as much as you'd like. You can even add a couple extra colors if you feel up to it. But I'm going to leave mine just like this. I like a little bit of the lines. It creates nice depth. And it will look really nice once we add some of the clouds over top of this. All right, there we go. Now it's on to adding the clouds. All right, everyone, I hope you are enjoying your time here today. Before we move on, if you are interested in learning more from me, I have a Patreon page that has hundreds of tutorials, and I live stream new tutorials for pastels and colored pencils every Tuesday and Thursday. I even offer one-on-one private lessons. So if you are interested in that, I will have a link below the video. But for now, let's get back to our project. So the color we're going to start with to start adding in our clouds is probably the most obvious color, and that's just white. And I'm going to start down at the bottom, and I'm just going to kind of draw a few lines, real short kind of dashed lines, to start kind of the base of the clouds. So this is kind of the bottom edge of the clouds down at the bottom. And now what I'm going to start doing is adding a little bit of volume to them. So over here, I'm going to give this cloud the most volume down here at the bottom. So I'm just going to kind of draw little circles. And one of the beauties about clouds is that the shape really doesn't matter. Clouds can be all kinds of different shapes. So just stay loose with your clouds and don't try to make them too cloud shaped, if you know what I mean. Sometimes clouds just look more natural when you scribble. So I'm just going to give these clouds over here a little bit of volume, and then maybe one or two of the clouds here in the middle, just a little bit. Well, kind of think of it like soft mountains. That's what we kind of created right there. So that's going to be the first shape of the mountains. See, I'm even calling them mountains. The next is going to be slightly larger. They're going to be thicker, more volume. And this has a lot to do with perspective, which we won't really get into. But a general rule when creating clouds in a sky is that the further away from the horizon that you get, the taller they get. So I'm going to put in a nice big cloud right here, and I'm just going to kind of sketch the outline so you can see the volume difference. So you can see just how much wider this cloud is than all of these clouds down here. These clouds, they get compressed somewhat, but only due to perspective. You can think of this cloud being closer to you, so therefore it appears larger. So I'm just going to quickly fill in this cloud with my white. Just kind of scribble that in there. And then I'm going to add a nice little broken up cloud, kind of just coming over like this. And you can see that I'm just scribbling. I'm not really concerned about shape or anything. You could make your clouds any shape that you want. I could draw a little bunny rabbit in here and it'd still end up looking like a cloud. So don't stress out too much with the precision of the shape of your clouds. Now the next kind of cloud that I'm going to do is the overhead cloud. You can kind of think of this as being the cloud that if you were to look straight up, it would be over top of your head. And because of that, it's going to have the most volume because this would be the cloud that's closest to you. So I'm going to start this cloud about here, and it's going to go all the way up to the very top. So this is the most voluminous cloud because this would be the cloud that's like right over your head. I'm just going to scribble some circles in there. You're probably thinking at this point, those don't look anything like clouds, and I won't argue with you. But once we blend them out, you'll just see how fun pastels really are. Pastels are one of my favorite mediums because they're just so easy. They're just so friendly and forgiving, and just about anybody can pick up a pastel and create a nice sky like this. All right, I'll give a little bit of cloud breakage over here. All right, so there is the foundation of our clouds. Now before we blend them out, I'm gonna add in a little bit of gray. So this is the gray number 1, the cool gray number 1. And I'm just gonna give our clouds a little bit of shadow before moving on. I'm gonna start down here at the bottom, and I'm just going to reinforce the bottom edge of our clouds with a little bit of gray. So just right at the bottom edge of the cloud is where I'm going to apply the gray, right over top of the white. Very, very simple. And I'll add just a little bit up into the cloud, kind of creating some levels or some layers of the cloud. Just very simple lines, very, very simple lines. And now I'm going to move up to our larger cloud right here and just give it a little bit bigger shadow, since we'll be able to see a little bit farther underneath this cloud since it's closest to us, closer to us. And a little bit over here. And then of course with the little broken up cloud, our little broken up cloud here, I'll just give it a few touches of shadow, just like that. And then we'll move up to our big cloud. So for our cloud up here, we'll do the same thing. We'll just scribble in a little bit of gray. And when I say scribble in, I literally mean scribble. I'm just kind of doing quick little circular motions here, nothing fancy, nothing technical, and nothing hard. And don't forget about those little clouds over there. There we go. And then of course, before we move on to blending, I also want to add our 5th and final color, which is the pure lavender, that nice, pretty light purple color. And I want to add a little bit of light pure lavender into our clouds, just to give our clouds a little bit of color diversity. This is just going to help them look a little bit nicer and kind of separate the colors from the sky just a little bit more. And you can add all kinds of colors to your clouds. You could add a touch of yellow to them to create a nice warmth from the sun. Or you can create some purple ones like I'm doing. And I'll just finish up these last little clouds down here with a touch of the pure lavender. And then I'll grab the blending tool and show you the magic of soft pastels. All right, so let me grab my blending tool here. And you remember, I always said use it very softly, use it very gently. Well, that's going to be emphasized even more here, because you don't want to spread those cloud colors too far. We want to keep them pretty much where we put them. That way our shapes make sense. I'm just going to start down here at the bottom, and I'm just going to very lightly soften this cloud. And you can move in little circles to smooth out particular areas of the cloud. Down here at the bottom, probably want to move rather horizontally though. As you get up towards the top, you can kind of do little circles. And you can see that gray giving our cloud a nice shadow, that purple just giving our cloud a nice color. So we got shadows, we got color, got everything a cloud needs. Just going to smooth out those clouds very, very gently. There we go. Let's go up to this big fluffy cloud here. I'm going to kind of use a circular motion, really soften this cloud. There we go. Now it's starting to look nice and soft. No more jagged lines, no more texture, just nice, soft, fluffy cloud. All right, let's blend out these ones. Now these ones I'm going to kind of blend out a little bit farther. These ones are going to be real soft over top of that blue. Blend them out a little bit more, just make them even more softer. Almost like they're fading away. That's the kind of cloud that these are. They're fading away into the background a little bit. Here we go. Now let's move up to our really big cloud. I'm just gonna blend this one out, make it real blurry. Nice and soft. Same thing with these little broken up clouds over here. Just make them real soft. Give it a couple little sweeps to the left or right, and they will kind of just disappear into that cyan. Now with this cloud, I want to make sure the edges are nice and soft, so I'll blend those out a little bit more. Right along that edge. There we go. I want to make this one nice and smooth, so I'm going to blend it for a little while. Alright, well, we are almost done with our clouds. The last thing we want to do is add some nice bright white highlights to them and then smooth them out one more time, and that will be it. So if you haven't guessed already, we're going to be using our white pastel, and this is where we're going to come in with a little bit more detail, a little bit more control, and a little less scribbling. So now we want to work on the top edges of our clouds where the sun light will be hitting and creating the bright part of the cloud. And so I'm just going to kind of use the corner edge of my pastel here, kind of create a little bit of texture, and basically what I'm creating is like a top ball kind of shape, a rounded shape, and I'm just kind of creating almost the cartoony version of clouds a little bit, but with a bit more variation and randomness. So you don't want to make them too cartoony. You don't want big things like that. You don't want that. You want to break that up into smaller bits. So you can see I made that rather clear. And then, so I'm just going to use smaller ones of that same arch and create a bit of variation and layers in my clouds here. Try to think about how the sun will be hitting your clouds. My sun is over here to the right side, so mostly the right side of any part of the cloud is going to be brighter as it comes up. And then the shadow side will be more the left side. So if you want to add shadows, deeper shadows, you can do that to your clouds. Add a little bit more of that cool gray number 1. And of course you can do this as much as you want. You can create as much detail and highlights in your clouds as you wish. There we go. Those clouds already look 1,000 times better and brighter. Alright, so now I'm going to come up to this cloud and create slightly bigger and softer highlights, since this cloud is just softer and more translucent to the sky. Maybe I'll create a little bit of texture right in here. So we'll add a little bit of variation of texture to this cloud. So we'll have some nice bright highlights up at the top and then kind of just softer, more translucent ones down at the bottom there. There we go. Let's not forget about these little clouds. Let's just add a few sprinkles of highlights in there and something like that. There we go. Nothing too complex. Now I'm going to come up here to our really big fluffy cloud and sprinkle in a few little spots where the cloud's kind of breaking apart. So I'll just add a few dots there, and then when we blend it out, it will turn into little dissipated clouds. This cloud has a hole in it, a little hole right there. All right, nice soft highlight right up here at the top, I think. Just where the cloud's a little bit thicker, because this is another cloud that I feel like is just kind of dissipating, blending into the sky really nicely. And if you ever want to add, a little bit of a hole or something, you just grab your cyan and add a little bit of the cyan right in there, and now that cloud has like a new hole through it, and then you can refine your shapes of your cloud, creating a few little holes and whatnot. Maybe I won't work on those ones, but up there in that big fluffy cloud, you can add all kinds of unique textures and looks and shapes, whatever you like. All right, a few little highlights on these clouds over here, just like that, and I think that does it. So what we're going to do, we're going to take our blender now, and instead of kind of smoothing out the entire cloud, we're going to focus our blending right there on the highlight, because we want to keep some of the hard edges of the cloud for the detail, but we want to kind of soften the bottom edge so it blends into the cloud really nicely. So I'm going to show you really quickly what that looks like on this little cloud down here. So instead of kind of brushing the pastel, what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of tap it. Just going to tap it right at the bottom edge of where we applied that white, so that the top edge stays sharp and contrasted, and then the bottom edge is smoothed out a little bit and blended. So just like that, little taps right on the bottom edge of the white there. Wherever you want it blended into the cloud, that's where you're going to tap and just do a little bit of a pull, tiny little pull down into the cloud. There we go, just like that. And we're going to do that same thing over all of our clouds. And just like the backdrop of the sky, you can spend as much time on it as you want. And I highly recommend taking your time. If you find yourself struggling to keep up with me, don't feel like you have to rush to keep up. That would be the wrong choice to make. Instead, pause the video, take your time, finish it, make it look the way that you want it to look. And I suggest making your own cloud shapes too. Don't follow my cloud shapes. Make your own cloud shapes, have fun with it. Maybe draw your favorite animal as a cloud. Smooth out some of these softer shadows that we added, or highlights I should say. Just do a little bit of softening there in the middle of that cloud. And then come up here to the edge. Just tap in the softness. And you see how easy clouds are? Skies like this are so fun to make. You can do them really, really quick once you get used to the steps of doing it. I really look forward to seeing all of your guys' lovely clouds. Alright, let's come up here. I'm going to blend out some of these little broken away clouds. I'm just going to soften them a little bit. I want to keep them kind of in the shape that they are, but I'm just going to blend them out into the cyan just a tad. And you can see they just look like they've kind of escaped the larger cloud, kind of broken off there. You can see how we added a little bit of that cyan in there, and it just kind of creates a nice depth and texture to our cloud. You can do all kinds of things with your clouds. There we go. Nice texture there. The more you blend, the softer your clouds are going to become, and the less you blend, the more texture your clouds will have. So you just want to kind of go back and forth with the level of texture and level of softness that you give your clouds. Give them plenty of variation, and that will make them real interesting. And then of course you can also change their colors a little bit and add whatever colors you like. Now earlier I mentioned adding some yellow to your clouds to kind of give them the sun-kissed look. You want to be careful adding yellow to your clouds because yellow and blue, they will mix to make green. And I don't think you'll be too satisfied with green clouds. So be very, very cautious if you add yellow to your cloud. You want to do it very, very carefully. Purple's a safe color, which is why I chose it. That and I love purple. I love lavender. It's one of my favorite colors. I use it a lot in all kinds of projects. All right, I think that finishes up my clouds and finishes up this episode of Peaceful Pastels. Remember to take some time with your clouds, refine them as much as you want, and get them looking exactly the way that you want. Now on to one of the most satisfying parts of pastel painting, is removing the tape to reveal the super clean border. Take your time in peeling off your tape also. You don't want to mess up those perfect borders. Yes, that is the most satisfying part of pastels. And here we are, everyone, our finished painting. I hope you enjoyed following along on this project. I would love to see what your sky looks like, so when you share it on social media, be sure to tag it with hashtag Peaceful Pastels, and I'll choose one to be presented in the next episode. Thank you again for watching. Make sure you are subscribed to catch the next episode. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and have a wonderful day. And I'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.